So Pymetrics was developed to apply analytics and assessment to the field of human capital. So what we do is we take the latest and greatest neuroscience assessment and put people through it. And so that would be, instead of asking people questions to understand them better, we put them through these performance-based games. And the second thing that we do is, instead of using statistics, we use recommendation engine technology to come up with your particular profile of cognitive and emotional strengths maps onto this field. We've leveraged this technology into a platform that does two things. One, it evaluates students for career fit. And then the other thing it does is it helps companies evaluate applicants or even internal employees for the optimal fit within an organization. So it's really all about mapping cognitive and emotional strengths and weaknesses using the latest technology, and leveraging that to help people sort of find their optimal space in the career world. It wasn't the case where I got my PhD, and then had this like very smooth like thought always in the back of my mind, oh, I'm going to become an entrepreneur. It was very much like a shock to my system. I was like, wow, like all this hard work that I put into being an academic neuroscientist, and now I don't want to do that. And what in the world do I want to do? Because you're not exactly trained for a lot of other occupations with a PhD in neuroscience. It's not like you have thousands and thousands of other things you could possibly do. So it was really a process of kind of figuring out kind of on the fly, okay, what can I do next? And somebody suggested that I apply to business school. I sort of thought, okay, if I can go to a top school, I can really sort of leverage my science to something bigger than if I just went straight out of the lab. So I applied, got into Harvard, had a fellowship, and it was really during the time that I was doing my MBA at Harvard that the idea for Pymetrics and using neuroscience assessment and analytics to help with career fit and recruiting kind of came about. So it definitely was not a very linear progression. There were a lot of starts and stumbles. I did know that I wanted to be an entrepreneur going into my MBA program, but that was pretty much the extent of what I knew. I don't think that Pymetrics would have been even remotely as successful as it has been if it hadn't been for, a lot of our client introductions came from friends or classmates or professors. A lot of, when we were doing our financing, I have a professor of entrepreneurship that was on the phone with me every day. Like, we met our investors through a case that we did at HBS. I think that almost every single piece of the business has been touched by my MBA. So I think both from a content and a networking perspective, I think an MBA is incredibly helpful. The advice I would have is, if you have any inclination, I would just say, just commit to doing it, just like you would anything else. Like if you were going to try to run a marathon, you wouldn't try to find the optimal time to figure it out. You'd just be like, okay, I'm going to run a marathon and I'm going to do it today. And I would think if you want to start a company, I think you just commit to doing it, and you just, like everything else in life, you just figure out a plan for how to get there. And then, obviously you have to be open to the fact that if it doesn't work out, you have to change course. But I think the biggest piece of advice I would say is, don't wait for some light bulb, like amazing idea to come to you in your sleep at night. I think it's just more about just being really passionate about being an entrepreneur, and I think everything else will find its way so long as you kind of commit to going down that path.